I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Caged Heat is over. We're going to start off with deep knee bends for openers.
Prison as a place of punishment.
Puke.
Caged Heat. Enter the female jungle of women's prison, USA. A seething hell of steel and stone where bodies behind bars ache with hunger for a man. Any man. Where caged passions ignite in carnal confinement and explode into violence.
We have a violent sorority here. And very strong ways of dealing with it. You're in a house of desperate women here. And a long, long way from home.
Listen! Take care of yourself! No, the Queen! I want to see the warden! You can't do this to me!
So, Caged Heat. Why are we talking about Caged Heat, Andy? What, or the alternative title, I think this was the working title, was Imprisoned Women, Breast Chaos.
Actually, the original title was Renegade Girls, but I enjoy your cheeky nature. This is our Roger Corman member bonus series that we're doing all season. And there was this period where Corman was producing a lot of these women in prison films because, Corman was always there looking for ways to make a buck and saw a way to make a lot of money from this particular version of exploitation films that, had been around. There were, there are women in prison pictures going back to the silent era, so it's not like it's a new thing. They just weren't necessarily quite the level of exploitation that would come later when we really got into the exploitation era, which kind of kicked off, I think, in, I'm looking right now, it looks like Jesus Franco's 99 Women in 1969, same year that Love Camp 7 also came out, and also around the period that Nazi exploitation films came out. So there were a lot of women in prison pictures, and interestingly, Roger Corman thought that the subgenre had run its course by the time that Jonathan Demme actually said he wanted to make this one and didn't want to produce it for him. He didn't want to provide him any funds, so Jonathan Demme had to go raise his own money to make this because he had produced some movies for Corman before this, including one of the women in prison pictures that Corman released called The Hot Box. And then Demme said, hey, I want to direct, and Corman said, great, but I don't want to direct your woman in prison picture. So Demme went and raised all of the money on his own. Martin Bregman and Samuel Gelfman are two producers that he got his money from, and I try to remember if he ended up working with them later. They had produced a lot of stuff like, Serpico, Dog Day Afternoon, so, all the way up to Matilda and the Bone Collector. And The Adventures of Pluto Nash. So
a classic of the oeuvre, Pluto Nash.
Exactly. But then Corman, I don't know if he saw it or what, but he did say, I will distribute your movie. So he did end up becoming involved with Demme on this project as distributor and put this thing out there. So that's kind of the origin of it. And, as far as this particular choice, our members voted on this. We picked a bunch of women in prison films, and this is the one they voted on. So here we are.
All right. So did you like it?
This is now the second time that I've watched this. I think I watched it initially because I wanted to do a little more to kind of close off some films in Demme's filmography. And I didn't love it the first time. I gave it 2 stars, no heart, when I watched it. I think I enjoyed it a little more. I think the whole concept of women in prison pictures is not necessarily like a favorite of mine, but I started enjoying, like on this watch, I was enjoying the characters more, just the kind of the antics, and just some of the ways that Demme, it seems like he's kind of poking at the whole idea of women in prison pictures and, what it is that you get out of these sorts of films. So is it a feminist film? I don't know. And I guess that's going to, often an argument with these sorts of films. Like, is there a political statement that Demme is making with it? I'm not sure. Some critics found it there. Regardless, I do think that we are seeing some interesting signs of Demme as a filmmaker early in his career as a director.
I think I probably land more with those critics. Like, I didn't like the movie. I didn't care for it. It just felt like it felt like the kind of movie that was I don't know how else to put it. It's just not for me. But when I take a step back and start reading about it, like the themes that come out of the movie, I think are more interesting than the movie itself. Like, looking at a movie that is of this sort of B grade and still has some real intentional motivation around institutional oppression, right? Like, and the sort of mental health toll that comes with incarceration and unethical medical practices, right? Like, it's a lot of this stuff is played for horror and comedy in the movie, but it's there for a reason. I think. And, as a feminist film, the fact that it attaches power to sexuality, like it's one of those movies that says, hey, this is what women have to work with, their sexuality, says the film, so let's have them work with their sexuality. That's a statement, right? That's certainly a statement that can, through the right lens, look like empowerment. And so, again, I don't know that the movie is greater than the sum of its parts. I think it might be slightly less good than the sum of its parts. But I had a good time with some isolated elements, and the fact that even though we get sort of rape proximate, we don't. The movie doesn't show an actual prison rape.
No. It depends on your definition of rape, but I mean, certainly the doctor is
bad news.
Pretty much there. He's already committing a lot of stuff that is, it may as well be just at the.
I think when he starts waving the drill around, you realize that rape is the least of the issues that we're dealing with. Like, he is a sociopath. Like, he's the worst.
Yeah, he's Mengele Jr.
Yeah, he really is. And I think that's part of the statement, right? This over the top character portrayal. No,
and I think that there are a lot of those elements within this that we're seeing here, and it starts with it's a crime story, cops busting these criminals who make a getaway. One of them is Jacqueline, our protagonist of the story, and she ends up getting caught. One of her partners gets shot. She doesn't know if he lives or dies. Well, she'll find out later that he didn't make it. But she gets sentenced because one of them had shot a bullet that hit a cop. She ends up getting sentenced to 40 years in this prison. And we're kind of coming into this situation through her eyes. And starting out this conversation, I mean, it is a very funny line. Let's start with some knee bends. But when you realize the context of the way that's being said, that's already kind of setting us up for the level of just kind of social commentary that Demme is making about life in prison, particularly for women, particularly in a situation where men are involved in their the processing, right? Because this is this doctor who waves this big old tool that what he's going to be using it for to check them after they all do their bends and everything. And it's like, it's pretty gross, and I think it's setting up some commentary about the way the prisons are running, like you said, and so we're getting a lot of that. All right, listen up, you bunch of cell block beauties. It's your old pal Andy, and I've got a proposition for you that'll make your head spin. What you just heard was a measly morsel of our no-holds-barred dive into Jonathan Demme's Caged Heat, but that's all the action you're going to get. There's a whole world of bonus content waiting on the other side of the bars, and the only way to break out and join the fun is by becoming a member. Picture this, a vast untamed jungle of exclusive episodes stretching out before you like the prison yard during rec time. As a member, you'll have the keys to this celluloid correctional facility, and honey, it's a wild ride. Every month you'll get a brand spanking new episode, each one a raw, unfiltered journey into the heart of the cinematic slammer. You'll also have ad-free access to our entire library, so you can prowl through our back catalog like a lifer on the hunt for a pack of smokes. And if that wasn't enough, we've got pre-show and post-show chats on a number of episodes that'll make you feel like you're right there in the thick of it with us, swapping stories and sneaking sips of contraband hooch. But here's where things get really down and dirty, my little jailbirds. As a member, you'll be calling the shots. You'll get to vote on the flicks we break out of cell block obscurity, ensuring that our bonus episodes are always serving up exactly what you're craving. You'll have your own personal posse of prison film fanatics, ready to stage the perfect cinematic jailbreak just for you. And if you're itching to mix it up with some fellow film felons, our Discord community is the place to be. It's like a virtual rec room where celluloid sisters and brothers can gather to swap war stories, spill secrets, and maybe even plan a few movie breakouts of their own. Just remember, snitches get stitches. So why be just another number in the system when you could be running the cell block? Bust on over to truestory.fm/join and sign up today. It's just $5 a month or $55 for a whole year. That's a small price to pay for a get-out-of-jail-free card to Cinema Paradise. And that, my fellow cons, is where we'll have to leave you hanging for now. If you want to experience the full, uncensored account of our lockdown lowdown on Caged Heat, you know what to do. Join the gang, become a member, and let's make a break for the big house of bonus content together. Trust me, it's a sentence you won't regret serving. Until then, keep your wits sharp and your shivs sharper. Over and out.